Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome in my new podcast show, Nate Chamberlain. Did I pronounce your last name
You
correctly?
did. Yeah, it's
Okay,
perfect.
okay. So, Nate, I've been seeing you all around LinkedIn and all of the 365 world. Can you tell me where you are, where you're from, what you do, and some general background about you?
Sure, absolutely. So right now I live in Kansas City, Missouri, and I've been working in Microsoft 365 since about 2013 maybe, something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
coming along a little bit, but I started with SharePoint. And right
Yep.
now I work for the Postal Regulatory Commission, which is a federal micro agency of the US government. And we have challenges in Microsoft 365 like everybody else when we need to build our digital workplace. So that's kind of what I get to focus on.
I see. So do you get all is that GCC or GCC
It
High
is. Yep.
or one?
We're GCC.
That means you get almost last all of the features.
That's right. Yeah, we have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, but okay. So actually, what is it really hot now? Is it like
It
desert there,
is.
or what's
Well,
the weather
not
there?
quite a desert, I'd say, but we're close to 100 most days, it seems. So once in a
I
while we'll get a
see.
cloudy day, and that's
Yeah.
paradise. How about for you?
Okay. Well, here we talk in Celsius, but it's around 30 degrees. It's probably the same,
Okay.
but we have air conditioning everywhere in the car, and we try to go to the sea. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just south of Tel Aviv,
Okay.
so we're close to the coast.
Very nice.
Yeah. So actually, how how did you get to SharePoint or to IT? Can you tell
Mm-hmm.
me the journey how you got to what
Mm-hmm.
you are now?
Sure. Yeah. So my educational background has nothing to do with IT. I started out with business and
Okay.
got a degree there, and then I got a degree in library science, and it was just kind of me trying to find my way.
Yeah.
But I had a boss at one point at a university library system who said, "Hey, we have this thing called SharePoint. Would you be interested in building an intranet with it?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Well, I've never heard of SharePoint, but yes, absolutely." So, so I learned SharePoint from Google and YouTube,
Yeah.
and kind of got into it that way.
What was that SharePoint on premise? Was that
No,
2013 or what was
it
that?
was the very early iteration of SharePoint Online. Actually, was my first one.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's really, yeah, I guess it changed a bit since then.
Hmm. Yep.
I see. So I read and I see lots of things. You were a trainer and you were a consultant. What is your main focus currently in your new
Mhm.
job? Is
Yeah.
it a
So
combination or?
yeah, I'd say that's fair. I'm definitely a combination. I wear a lot of hats, but my technical role is business analyst. So I have discussions with people, gather requirements,
I
then
see.
ultimately either help them build a solution in Microsoft 365 or teach them how to do it.
Now I saw you wrote a book or
Hmm.
several books with
Hmm.
I think Peter Rising, but that's
Yes.
really more system administration of
Hmm.
Microsoft. So how did you get to from a SharePoint which is more implementing
Hmm.
or adoption to uh, I don't know which test it is. Can you tell me which test it is?
Sure. Yeah. So our book was
And
the MS.
it's very technical. So how did you get
Yes.
there?
So the one we did was MS 700. So that's for administering Microsoft Teams specifically. And I think I just got there by having to do it myself. I had to, to wear all the hats,
Yeah.
and I found myself as the Teams administrator. I was the SharePoint administrator, and going into a role like that without a lot of experience, you have to learn on the fly and you have to learn quickly. So a lot of it was experience based. I made mistakes. I learned from
Yeah.
those, and eventually, filled in the gaps enough to be able to write a guide with Peter on Teams administration.
Wow, that you need to. th- Does that mean you need to get like the 100 on a test, or it doesn't mean anything? It's you just need to pass, and you just need to have experience to and uh, uh, knowledge to explain or to
Hmm.
think about what's going to be on the test.
Yeah, yep. So I think on mine I actually got probably somewhere in the mid 80s. So you definitely don't need 100, but yeah, it is that good combination of having the experience with
Yeah,
the technical. For me, I think the most challenging part of all the exams is when you get asked questions that you just don't have to deal with on a regular basis.
yeah,
And Teams is a really good example of that because you're going to be asked about Teams room devices. You're going to be asked about
yeah,
call-in plans, even if you don't administer those in your
yeah.
organization.
I actually was thinking of taking one of the basic ones, even the foundation, but
Hmm.
I found it was totally uh, technical, which is has nothing to do with SharePoint or Teams. It was really you need to be a system administrator to understand all of those things, group
Hmm.
policies and all kinds of. So actually, started learning, but I said I think it's off. Not really will contribute much, but for people that are really in the field, I think it's very important. And I think if people pass the test, it doesn't mean they know the job. They need
Hmm.
usually, I think, from experience. I mean, it certificate is important. Maybe some people, some employers want it as a baseline, but
Hmm.
afterwards, I think I'm sure there's people that pass the test and don't know it, and some people that didn't take the test and know it.
Yeah.
But if you take it, it's good. So
Yeah, I
actually,
absolutely agree.
how did you start your blog and your YouTube channel?
Hmm.
Was it
Yes.
just something that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. It was just kind of random. It started out with me. I just have a hard time remembering things sometimes, so I was like, I need to document
Okay.
some of these things I'm doing so I can use them again in the future. And so back when I first started learning SharePoint, I decided, well, a blog seems like a good place to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I didn't really get a lot of views or anything. I wasn't doing it for, views, but
Yeah.
after a while, I did start to notice, hey, that's picking up. So at the time, I was
Okay.
working in libraries, I was getting my library degree. And so my site was called SharePointLibrarian.com.
I
And then
see.
when it started picking up, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to rebrand that
You
and
drop.
changed it to, yeah. Yeah, I went to NateChamberlain.com now.
Ah, okay. So you found that domain empty, I think.
Yeah, luckily.
Yeah.
Not a lot of Nate Chamberlains.
I see. And I actually saw you also created some kind of a course.
Hmm.
So for free, yeah. And
Hmm.
but
Yep.
I actually did it, and I
Oh,
published in
nice.
LinkedIn. The I think I was one of the first, or at least
You were, yep.
were. And I just wanted to test my knowledge, and I want to tell you it was very down to earth, very understandable, and and detailed. But and I'm sure for people that don't have a background, it would be very helpful. But even for people that do have a background, it's good. You always can learn something new, and
Hmm.
it's very nice of you to create a free course. I mean,
Thank
maybe
you.
I think you had more courses in addition, right? That you're planning to do, or you did in
So
the.
yeah, hopefully I can in the future. So right now it's kind of gauging how much time it's going to take because that one course has about 4 hours of video content.
Wow,
And
wow,
so, to do that, usually we're quadrupling that just to create it and edit it and all of that. So it takes a long time to put a course
yeah.
together. And this
w-
year's just been kind of crazy, but I would love to do more.
Yeah, well, I want to tell you, it's a big contribution to the community, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
So currently or in the past you did more training, right?
Hmm.
And now you're doing less, but in your previous the job before that, you did lots of training. Did
Hmm.
you like the interaction of working? Well,
Hmm.
we had COVID, so some of the time, most of it was virtual. But
Yes.
what did you also train face to face, or was it
Hmm.
mostly remote?
Yeah, so it was a good mix. I got to go on site and I got to meet people, and it was always a pleasure because you're meeting new people who do different things with Microsoft 365,
Yeah.
and you get new ideas, right? And you get to share. And I always felt like as a trainer, I was learning just as much as I was teaching, and that was probably the best part.
Yeah, and what do you do if somebody gives you a question? you're not sure about. I mean,
Hmm.
is it okay to say I don't know, or you should say let me check it, or
Hmm.
because no
Yeah.
one's perfect. I think no one knows all. No one can
Right.
know everything about M65 because it
No.
changes. Sometimes when you demonstrate something, things change since the last time you did something.
Hmm.
But
That's so
what do you
true.
say in a case that somebody says or finds something that you never came across?
Yeah, it happens all the time, and you're spot on. I want to say up front in those situations that I don't know the answer, but I
Okay.
always try to follow up. So if I don't know it right then, I try to find out as quickly as I can, and then I touch base with that person. A
Ah,
good
that's
example
fair
is,
enough. Yeah.
yeah, I was just at a conference in DC, and one of my attendees had a really good question I didn't know the answer to. So
Yeah.
as soon as my session was over, I looked it up, found the answer, went and found that attendee, and shared the answer.
Ah, that's great. That's great. So, as I understand, you're MVP, right?
Yep. So four
Can you
years so
tell?
far.
Wow. And can you tell me the journey to become a? Did you ever? Did Was that your dream to be a MVP, or did it just come? Who did nominate you? Do you have?
So yeah, I was part of the group right before they started requiring nominations. So I self-nominated, and this was at a time,
Oh,
yeah, the program was a little different, and it was a struggle to get in. I didn't make it for a long time, and at one point I gave up and decided,
yep.
maybe it's not so important. But several people encouraged me to try again and to not give up on it. So I did self-nominate again, and I
Okay.
got it eventually. So just
Wow.
kind of a little bit of persistence, yeah.
And after you get it, is it harder to keep the thing on, or is it if you just continue doing what you're doing, then it's just natural? So how?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that, but for me, what it's been is I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. I change a few things. Like recently, I've been less active on Twitter, and I'm kind of reshuffling my
Yeah.
priorities. So sometimes it's in the back of my mind, like, oh, is this going to cost me the MVP award? But then I remind myself that I'm proud of what I'm doing anyway, and I feel like I'm making a difference. So I'm just going to keep doing that and
Yeah,
see what happens.
and I think to to avoid burnout, then sometimes you need to have a
Hmm.
life and an MVP, like
Right. Yep.
life and work balance. So you need a
Hmm.
MVP and life
Right.
balance.
That's so
Uh,
true, so important.
yeah, I actually got my MVP a month ago. So,
Yes,
and I just got the
congratulations.
trophy, which
Ah, that's
was
exciting.
yeah, yeah. It's but I always I was nominated by Norm Young. I don't know. Do you
Ah,
know him?
yes. Yes, I do, yeah, he's
And
great.
he's from Canada. And
Mhm,
we tried the first year, and for some reason we didn't even get an answer. That was,
oh,
I don't want to say rude, but it was
mhm,
not nice not to get an answer.
yeah,
And then
mhm,
we tried again, and actually I also almost gave up, and then suddenly I got it, and I said, "Wow!" And I always
mhm,
said I was doing it to share with the community. I wasn't doing it to get the MVP. MVP is just like a bonus, or just like
mhm,
um, to feel better. So I'm still new, learning a lot, and enjoying or try to get all kinds of things that NDA meetings and all kinds of things
mhm,
like that. But that's very interesting. So
yeah,
now I would like to ask you something more not technical, but we are Microsoft is all the time. Um, there's new features coming out, and there's the roadmap and the message center, and I'm sure you're following. And I'm wondering if there's anything in your mind which you think in future will be like a game changer.
mhm,
It can be in Teams, in SharePoint, it can be anything in an environment.
mhm. Yeah, I think, we've all heard a lot about Copilot, so it feels like the easy
Yes,
answer. Yeah.
AI.
But I think, something that's really interesting to me is how we can bring that into our meeting experiences. So I'm very excited about meetings because I feel like just behaviorally, we as humans don't do meetings very effectively. where we can have all the technology in the world, but we still
Yeah.
get on that camera and we don't have an agenda sometimes, and we don't have action items for follow up, or sometimes the meeting just doesn't have any output whatsoever. So I think this AI is going to help us, stay focused on the agenda and be able to pull out from the transcript action items and things that we need to focus on, and hopefully even help encourage us to do those before the next meeting.
So I think there's a feature called like meeting summary or something like that,
Hmm.
which is
Yep.
supposed to come out.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Copilot if there will be a cost or some license that will be in addition. Do you know?
I
Or
think there will be. Yeah, but I think I've
I
heard that.
see. It's a shame it can't be for
Right.
for everyone because everyone's looking up. It's just like they have the premium teams. I'm not
Hmm.
sure how many organizations will adopt the extra. I don't know, $10 or something.
Hmm.
But it might give lots of functionalities, and maybe it's worth for specific people in the
Hmm.
organization to invest in it.
Hmm.
Okay, great. And the next question is, what do you think needs to be fixed or needs to be, developed? Things. I mean, you know, uh, SharePoint and Teams has some boundaries and limitations, and I think we all, I won't say suffer, but we need to deal with it, like the
Hmm.
threshold and other things. And
Hmm.
do you have any ideas or things that you think should be improved?
Hmm.
If maybe Microsoft is listening to us.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest pain points is going to be tasks. We have Planner, we have tasks inside of Outlook, and then when you use OneNote, it has integrations with Outlook, but not to do. So we're seeing tasks be, just thrown out all over Microsoft 365. And we're seeing a little bit of consolidation, like with the Teams app
Loop,
called Tasks by Planner and To Do. Yeah,
and we
Loop,
also
you're
have
right.
Loop
That's
and the
right.
Loop
Yeah.
app. Yeah, so we have.
Mhm. So many places. So that's what I'm hoping for, is some kind of consolidated task environment.
I actually saw some that even tasks from project will be some in the app of Teams, where you see
Oh,
all of the
wow.
things of. So that's interesting. I'm not using
Mhm.
actually projects on the web, but for people that are, it might be another place to collect all of the things.
Mhm.
And okay, yeah, I actually excited. If we're talking about the new features, about what Microsoft is talking about to integrate the Microsoft Forms in the Microsoft lists. That will be,
Yeah.
I think, a very interesting thing.
Mhm.
Instead of doing, exporting to Excel or doing automation to move it to a list, it can
Mhm.
live in a list, and
Yeah.
that would be very. Now, do you touch any? Do you use Power Automate and Power Apps
Mhm.
and these things, or
Mhm.
Power BI as
Yep.
part
Yeah,
of
so
your?
absolutely. I use it pretty much daily. So
Oh,
a lot of the
okay.
solutions I build in my current role are based in Power Automate. Some of them have a Power Apps front end, and some of them are Power BI. So I think Power Automate's at the core of almost all my solutions these days, because it's
Yeah,
so important, right, to be able to move data across these apps easily.
yeah. But what do you think about? They talk about Power Platform as a no code, low code,
Hmm.
but yet I think people need some. If people come from a background of a developer, it's much easier from them. The
Hmm.
logic in Power Automate. If you want to do variables, if you want to do loops, if you want to connect to all kinds of things. So basic things I can do, but once it comes a bit more complex, I prefer to give the expert to do it. Um, so I think I don't know, I think it's a bit of a myth to say everyone can do it, because
Hmm.
not everyone can do it, and if people have a better background, maybe it would be much easier for them.
Hmm.
Um, do you believe of the citizen developer that anyone can do, or is it
Hmm.
something that maybe people that do it daily are the people to
Mhm.
do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I definitely believe that the people who are doing it more often have an easier time sticking with it and staying up to date because it does change, pretty often. But as far as citizen developers, I do think everybody can start building in it. But you're right. There's this curve where learning best practices and doing things the right way, or the best performance way,
Yeah,
isn't that easy, right? We have to learn OData filtering. We have to learn the best way to structure that logic switches versus if then steps or if then conditions. So there's so many different ways to make the same thing happen, but some have a heavy toll on
yeah,
performance.
and maybe governance that needs to be
Hmm.
applied. If each one runs on his own account instead of a general one, and he leaves
Yes.
the company, then the
Hmm.
automate goes. And I'm sure, or if the password needs to be the password has expired for the general one, so maybe I don't know, you need something that never expires, or something or some token that's okay.
Hmm.
So let's see what else. So we talked about the book. So
Hmm.
uh, did you have already a second edition of a book that you wrote, or are you
Hmm.
working on it? What's the status currently?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, Peter and I wrote the first edition of the MS 700 guide, and then about a year later, we released the second edition of it. So that's already out somewhat recently. And then I am working on a second edition of one of my friends, Gaurav Mahajan's book that's a SharePoint and Microsoft 365 cookbook, but it's geared towards end users, so everyday users of Microsoft
Ah, good.
365. Yeah, and especially SharePoint. And I'm just coming in to help with a few new chapters in that book.
I see. So I want to present just
Hmm.
your YouTube channel and the podcast just to
Oh,
so
great.
people can see it.
Well, thank you.
So let's see. So we can look together. So this is your YouTube channel. I
Yeah,
see you have a hundred
that's me.
and yeah, and you have an introduction. Do you have playlist? Let's see. You have
Not
all kinds
much.
of playlists. Not much,
Hmm.
but you have your content is really good. It can be
Well, thank you.
tips and tricks, and really, sometimes these small things can help really a lot. I was looking, in list. I want to show the previous month, yeah, for
Hmm.
instance, or something like that, and all kinds of small things that it's really worth what you're doing. I'll
Well,
also
thank you.
go and I want to show the. Let me stop sharing. I want to also share the your blog. So let's see here. This is your blog. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. I like this OneNote where you can switch
Yes, yeah.
layouts. That's something that has been annoying, and
Hmm.
it's a bit confusing because sometimes uh, in the Windows you have OneNote for Windows 10, and you have one which is a different OneNote. Uh, so and you have the web one. So
Hmm. That's
but
so true, yeah.
yeah, so really really good blog. I recommend everyone to look through it,
Well,
and
thank you.
you'll find lots of information here. Okay, so I'll stop sharing, and we're back. And actually, I've been seeing you're doing lots of posts about zoos. Can you tell
Yeah.
us what's all of the zooing about?
Yeah, good question. So I kind of got to a point with my tech journey where I needed better work-life balance, and we talked a little bit about that here today. But for me, it was like I spent so much of my time, my hobbies and my work time, on a screen, and
Yeah.
indoors, and I didn't really get much of a chance to connect with my community because I work remotely with people who are 3.5 hours by plane away from me, so I
Oh
don't
my
get to see
God.
my coworkers. Yeah, and I don't really have much of a network here in Kansas City. So I
Okay.
wanted to find some way to volunteer to, one, give back to my community, two, to connect with people here. And then 3, just get outside and get off the screens a little bit. So the zoo is perfect. They opened up applications for this volunteer program, and I got in.
Okay, but I see you're also fundraising and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get donations, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really nice that you're not only contributing to the Microsoft community, you are also contributing to yeah people, the animals. I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
really nice
Well,
that you're
thank you.
doing
I
it.
appreciate that. And I know that you're doing the community band, so I always enjoy seeing those
Yes,
posts.
yes,
It's
yes.
very cool.
I play the trumpet. It's one day a week where I tell my wife, "Sorry, don't book anything. I'm going." There's 60 people that we play, and there's a conductor, and most of the performances are volunteering to old age homes, and everything
Oh,
is
very
free. So
nice.
we don't, even if we do a concert and we get money, it all goes to, just to a general pot where they buy food and things like that. So that's, yeah, it's important to have some kind of a break. Although I really enjoy doing this YouTubing and posting, and I just, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't continue.
Right. Yep.
If and sometimes it gets to a point, I can't keep it in my mind. I need to share it because I'll
Mm-hmm.
forget it, and then I
Yep.
won't. But I also did my YouTube channel in a way of that I wanted to reference things that I found maybe with customers, or new features that I did, and and luckily it increased, and I don't care how many um, views, but what's important is if one person can learn from it, then I'm so happy. I
That's
actually
right.
also created in the US you don't use WhatsApp, but it's
Not
very
very much.
it's very common in Europe and India and rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I created like 8 WhatsApp groups. Each one has like 800 members, and each one
Oh,
is
wow.
different. It's Q&A, and each one has different subject. One is Teams, one is SharePoint, one is PowerShell. Even though I don't know much, but I think the community needed somebody that can
Mm-hmm.
just connect between people. And
Right.
for some reason, oh well, I was good at just creating
Yeah.
it, and then
That's you.
people, yeah, I mean, and then the rest is just to monitor that everything's there. But and people are happy, and then they say, how come we don't have a group on another topic? But yeah, that takes a lot of time, but it's really
Yeah.
so actually we almost get to the end. I mean, we talked about lots of things, and I want to tell you, your blog and YouTube is one of the best. I mean,
Well, thank you.
luckily last week I interviewed Greg Zelfom. Do you know Greg
Amazing.
from
Yep. It's
Sharepoint?
great.
And he also has, and I think this not an issue of competition or something, because I found that really in the Microsoft community. Uh, Even though people talk about the same thing, each one can give his point of view, his use case, his best practice, and I think that's what's nice. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
a competition. We're not, at least me. I'm not. It's not my business. I do
Mm-hmm.
it. It's a hobby. Other
Yeah. Same.
people. So if people want to follow you, what's the best way that they can reach you?
Yeah, so my best option is LinkedIn these days. So just look for me, Nate Chamberlain, out there, and you'll see my big zoo photo on my profile picture.
What's your
But that's
favorite
me.
animal? Yeah.
Oh, so it's the red river hogs. They're basically in Africa, and they've got a pretty large central part of Africa where they could be found. So they're not endangered or anything, but they're cute. They're small. They're red.
What are they? What is are they birds?
Oh no,
What
they're red river hogs. So they're a kind of
ah
pig.
pig.
Uh huh.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry,
They're
my English is okay.
Oh no.
Uh, I guess they don't eat them. Yeah, they're just for.
No, we don't. Yeah. But yeah, they're
Okay,
kind of similar
so
to warthogs a little bit.
are you on Twitter or
Not so much anymore. You can
yeah.
find me there. So I think my handle's Chamber but I'm just not there as often as LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, listen, I had a great time
Me too.
talking to you. It was very interesting, and hopefully we can connect and be in touch.
Well,
And
definitely.
thank you for being on my show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I was okay. So, see you until then.
Okay,
Bye
thank you,
bye.
Ani. And bye.